Oh, we're live again. This is Gabriel with Experts35, your host. Thank you for joining us again. As promised, 35 different industries, expert from each industry, talking about the challenges, the hardships, and the opportunity. If you want to join us, text Expert35 to the number on the screen, and you'll be able to join us, follow everything that we're doing. This week, we're talking about challenges in social emotional learning, as well as getting into college. So follow us on Wednesday. We're going to have some of the admissions process and how all this COVID stuff has changed how students can make it and get to universities and the higher learning. But today, I've got the honor of Dr. E.T. Dr. E.T. Trevino, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Gracias. Thank you so much for having me on today. Thank you so much. I'm actually in El Paso right now because I'm on vacation going to New Mexico. So I'm making it work.
That's what we all do, right? I mean, I was in Montana last week and I was still doing some of these. So it's just so important. It's so timely to listen from your experience. So tell us a little bit, right? You're from Coahuila, you immigrated, you served, right? And tell us a little bit more about how you got into all this social emotional, and trauma.
Yes, well, I am an immigrant from Ciudad Acuña, Coahuila, and as you shared, I served in the Army Reserves as an immigrant 1 million years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what got me into this trauma research is an experience that we had with my family. We had a traumatic experience with border violence. So then, as a parent, as a teacher, as an educator, and as a researcher, I started um, learning more myself. I wanted to learn more about trauma and how that works in schools and social emotional learning and how that affects students and how that affects their learning and their brain depending on their age. And so that's how I got started on this path. It was also a form of healing for myself and for my family, and so I think that's helped us um, overcome many obstacles that have come across in our lives because we dealt with trauma before.
And it's so important, right? I mean, I think anybody that comes over as an immigrant to a new system, learning the education system. One of our experts last week, Jose Paulo Fernandez, 400 Voices, was talking about the disconnect. The parents, they're at home, they're coming to America, they're trying to understand the new education system, but they're working. They don't know the system. They may only have one phone, right? The children are off at school, but now all of a sudden they're back at home. And that's
Yes.
just a huge burden, especially to the lower income.
Mm-hmm.
But before we even get into that, let's talk about some of the experience about the burden to the teachers, right? You were saying that the teachers are dealing with it differently and that you've done some research, correct?
Yes. So what was happening during this COVID time, I was very much connected with my teacher friends, and knowing from trauma that there's 5 types of trauma, and the trauma that we're going through right now is a trauma that maybe happens once in a lifetime or natural disaster or whatever. And I knew for a fact that our teachers were hurting, right? Especially the ones that really love their kids, who are crying for their kids and missing them. And so I started holding some surveys, sending out some surveys to all the teachers in Texas, and they were responding. And the themes that kept coming up as teachers during COVID was anxiety, stress, depression. Um, and they were all the same no matter what. And I thought, okay, you know what? We have to focus on our students, but we also need to focus on our teachers, because if the social emotional aspect is not there for us, how can we be there for our own students, right? And so then some districts, for example, Wesco ISD has hired me to conduct social emotional learning for teachers to support them and how they're going to support their own students with social emotional learning, uh, hopefully in August, September, when the schools open back up.
And tell us a little bit about what that means. What is social emotional learning?
Social emotional learning basically has to do with understanding our own feelings, our own emotions, how we set goals for ourselves, and more than anything is being self-aware. recognizing that there's certain aspects of ourselves or others that we need to support, right? And especially with our English language learners, our bilingual students, we need to find ways to become culturally responsive teachers to them by connecting, their lived experience, their culture, their values, and all of that with who they are. And it's an interesting topic to talk about, and for many years people have not addressed it. But even me as an adult, even you, sometimes you tell yourself, you know what, I need a break, I really need a break, I need to take a day off, or I really need to, like what I tell my teachers, treat yourself, right? So that
Right.
you and that's actually part of the homework that I gave them, because I had a training with Wesco ISD, and we were not going to see each other for 2 weeks, and I said, okay, in these 2 weeks I need you to send me evidence of how you're treating yourself. And I just had a teacher send me a text, hey, I'm going to go fishing this weekend, here's a picture of the boat. I need to go and do something for myself, because we get so caught up in what we have to do, right, that we forget about ourselves. And then who's going to suffer more? Our students, our family.
Right.
So to me, even though I was hired to focus on social emotional learning and teaching of students, the research tells us that yes, that's great, but if the teacher is not there also socially emotionally, then it's not really going to benefit anybody.
And this has been super hard for the teachers as well as the students. I've got a great question. Jan is asking, how do I check in with my kids? What questions do I ask?
Well, especially now with kids, and thank you, Jana, for your question. Especially kids now that there's so much with emojis. So this is one part that you can ask your kids. Hey, how are you doing? Show me an emoji, or give them an emoji. Which emoji describes you? And this is actually something that I did with my teachers. I asked them. I had emojis on a Mentimeter, and I said, which one describes you? How you feel right now? What kind of teacher are you right now? And that helps them, because now they can choose. You give them an option instead of them having to internalize, well, you know what, how do I feel? Well, I feel like this, right? Do you feel happy? Do you feel sad? Do you feel frustrated? um and let's talk about it. Why do you feel frustrated? Why do you feel sad? Okay, because of XYZ. Okay, so what do you think would change to make that better, right? And I know with me, dealing with border violence and traumatic events of our students, one thing that I always shared with my students was, um, after you find out the atrocities that they've lived, right? My comeback to them was, okay, that experience that you had is is huge, right? Learning English is going to be easy. Learning easy is going to be super easy now, because you experienced, murder, or an event that nobody should ever have to experience, right? And so you turn that negative into a positive that made you stronger, that made you feel better. So yes, so to start them off, I would just use emojis. That, because sometimes kids don't want to talk, they don't want to
Right.
share, they're embarrassed, right? What is he gonna say? What's she gonna say? But if we give them a set of emojis, then I could it's kind of like when you go to the doctor, right? And they ask you from a 0 to 10,
Where's
what's the worst pain, right? And you're like, I'm at a 10, right? It's
right.
the same way.
No, great suggestion. And I think some of the things we've been talking about is, especially in the Hispanic culture, right? We have this historical trauma. We've all come over. I'm first generation. I came from Mexico,
High
and
five, high five,
how do you do it?
cousin.
And it's just so interesting to think that my parents were in a way saying, hey, don't make waves, right? Like, I remember the first days my parents told me, the first day of school, like, don't get in trouble. And I broke the nose of a kid by accident because going to recess, and it was like a terrifying moment. And instead we made it something very powerful to be able to build community. But we had a different perspective, right? And so now, like, how is that affecting children, like this uprising on some of this next phase? Like, how can we tell them that there is opportunities for them?
Well, and it's so interesting that you share that about yourself, because you're right. As immigrant kids, when we were brought to the United States, the thing is like, don't ask for anything. No pidas nada, just do what you got to do, learn English, right? And so historical trauma is huge, because historical trauma has affected a lot of the ways that many parents have raised their children. So, for example, you'll meet a lot of immigrant parents, who have raised their kids, and their kids do not know any Spanish at all. And so once you start asking, well, how come your kids don't speak Spanish? They will open up to you, and they'll say, well, when I was a little kid in school, my teacher hit me with a ruler, or my teacher, like one of the parents told me once, the teacher took off her shoe and with the heel of the shoe started hitting us for speaking Spanish in recess. I didn't want that for my kids, right? They're examples. And so now that this world is I want to say opening up to um validating every single individual, right? That yes, I'm different. Yes, I have an accent. Yes, I speak Spanish. And that's okay, because that is the American dream. All of us, believe it or not, are immigrants, or were years and generations ago, right? And it's being able to recognize that. And I have 5 kids. And by the way, today's my daughter Alexia's birthday. She's 25. She's a nurse. So, of course, I have to say happy birthday to my baby. But
Oh,
even
that's awesome.
even and she works with immigrants too. So my little one is 8 years old, right? And so her thing is, why can't people just be nice? Like, why is it bad? And I guess to us, it's from the beginning as teachers. For me, one thing that I always use to compensate for this historical trauma is, as a teacher, I would always just exaggerate. I would exaggerate being Mexican, being American, speaking Spanish. I would exaggerate. And I even remember bringing in guest speakers like Dalila Garza from Telemundo Channel 40 to
Uh-huh.
speak to my kids about the power of being bilingual, and how she traveled the world and she met President Obama and all these things. And our kids were like, oh, Spanish is good. Yes, Spanish is good. Chinese is
That's
good. Mandarin is
incredible.
good. Yes. And so I think it starts with us, because a lot of kids, they can't help it. Like, their parents went through this horrible trauma. The parents can't fix it, right? The parents
Right.
went through it. So then we as the leaders have to encompass that to our kids and say, guys, yes, your parents went through that, and yes, we were living in bad times, but it's okay to be yourself,
Right.
and promote it. If last time I was at a Target and this little girl was speaking Spanish to her mom, and I went up to the little girl and I said, I'm so proud of you. You speak Spanish. You're going to be smarter and this and that. And then the mom looks at her and she says, ves y te da vergüenza hablar en español, right?
Mhm.
And again, that happens with the experiences that they're having, right? And so we need to change that.
Absolutely. I think there's so many. That's a great point. Like, just be proud of your culture. Show that like we are here, and also that we have a voice. Like for me, this is like a really life changing to be able to speak out about some of the things that I've never been able to speak out about before.
Mhm.
Right. Part of the reason that I even learned how to speak English without the accent was to remove my accent. Right. So that I would be, I guess, more
American.
accepted, in the United
Yes.
States. So I got a great question from Carla. Do you think social distance in classroom will affect the way children learn?
Well, I mean, I want to say yes and no, because I'm all about hanging out together and making
Hmm.
connections. But now we have to come up with a new normal. So it just depends, as a teacher, if we're creating that new normal that's going to be positive and it's going to be engaging. And the only difference, guys, is that now we're 6 feet apart. Okay, which means people can't steal your pencils and borrow your markers. So that's good, right? We can turn it into a fun moment.
Right.
But actually, I think we could even be more connected, because now there's so many more things that we could talk about. And one thing that I like to ask my teachers is, think about it. During COVID, you became somebody else. I mean, I had people that had never only knew how to use an email. That's it. And now you see them zooming and they're creating, it's that self-efficacy. And if we
Hmm.
can teach that to our kids, okay, guys, well, now we just have to change things a little bit, right?
Right.
But we don't lose who we are, and we can turn it into a very teachable moment. Mhm.
That's so true. So true. Here's an interesting question. I don't think you can see it all on your screen, but it says, every year I have a mantra or motto for myself and for my students. Right? What do you think the new mantra should be with all of this that's happened? Do you have something you would tie into it?
Okay, and I actually know Miss Galvan. She's one of our teacher of the year for Westlaco ISD. Yes, yes, for
Let's give her a
amazing
thumbs
teacher.
up.
Yes, teacher, and she has the Animal Club and does amazing things for ESL and bilingual students. Okay, so me thinking about 3 words. Okay, it would probably have to be Okay, is it 3 words or one? Okay,
It's
one, a
just a
mantra.
mantra. I mean, I don't
Okay,
know if
so
it
a
has to be
mantra.
three
My
words.
my mantra would be keep going. You know, you one step is a step forward. And it reminds me of one of the quotes from Martin Luther King, and I don't know exactly how it goes, but it says something like, if you can't walk, crawl, and if you can't crawl, like, get to where you need to get to one step at a time. So maybe for me it's very difficult to learn technology. Well, maybe my first step is just this, right?
Hmm.
Because we have to set goals. So to me it's just keep going, because everything around us is not going to change. And the moment that
Right.
we decide I'm not going to keep going, I'm just going to stay here and I'm going to cry and pout, well, life is going to happen to us either way. It's still going to happen, right?
Right.
And so I would just say, keep moving forward. Keep moving
Right.
forward. Fail forward. If we fail, okay, we keep going. We get up, and
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect example of immigrants. You know, we fall on our face, we get back up.
Right.
Um,
Well, and
you
one
know,
of the things that we always talk about, and especially in some of the motivational in the dual language world, is, have you heard of el pan está duro?
see,
El pan está duro is like, no, duro es no tener pan.
exactly,
Right. So it's
exactly.
like
Yes,
don't look at, and let's translate it, right? The bread is not hard. Hard is not having bread.
yes.
Right.
And so that right there touches at the example of how even during this tough, difficult time where people have lost their jobs,
Hmm.
you know, have gotten sick, business wise, our world has been turned upside down. To think of, okay, what is there a grim of light? Because if we compare ourselves to other people, you know, there's going to be people who are in definitely worse situations than we are. So one thing that I always like to in share with my own children at home is when they complain about something. Well, and I'm like, well, you know what, my I don't like my tennis shoes. You know, I need some new ones. Well, you know what? I know somebody that doesn't have shoes, that doesn't have feet. Okay, I mean, I'm
Right.
very dramatic like that. So yes, I love that example you gave.
Amazing. Also, let me see. I've got another one about Michelle Suniga. How should
Yes.
district school address social emotional learning for all students and teachers?
Okay. Well, hi, Michelle, and I'm seeing some people here, Dr. Quesada and Manny Garces, and so excited to see people here. So to me, I feel that social emotional learning is number one that teachers have, and I'm telling you because I'm supporting teachers with it. If and one thing that I ask, that I tell my teachers, is just ask yourself, are you hurting? 9 out of 10 will tell you yes. So to me, districts need to have a plan before even school starts. You
Hmm.
know, how to address the emotional needs of their teachers, because even the toughest teachers were like, I'm fine, I'm gonna be okay. No, you're not. Something is bothering you, something hurts, you miss your kids even though you say you don't,
Right.
or you just miss the routine, right? Because for some people, you know, they live in a house, and you're there all the time, right? And I know, I remember a friend sending me a picture of, it was a meme, right? And the lady was blinking, right? And the man looks at her and he's like, you're blinking too loud, because we get on each other's nerves, right? So
Right.
I believe districts should do that. I know in Texas, I know in the Valley, Gear Up is doing a lot with supporting districts with, you know, social emotional trainings, that if teachers, if school districts need it, they support them with that. I think that is primary. I think social emotional learning sessions should be number one. And then right behind that should be how to teach online. Because,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Well, and let's talk a little. I'm going to put up your a slide. I've been putting it up as you're speaking, but tell us a little bit about your company. You formed it right before
Oh my
COVID
gosh.
started, right?
Yes.
And you kind of help with everything we're talking about.
Okay, so what happened is, I my company started, I left my job at Region 1. It's an amazing place to work. We supported 37, 38 districts, and part of Texas. But I had this dream in my heart for 20 years, right? So my last day was March 13th, Friday the 13th. That Monday, it was all over the news. Oh, schools shut down. And then I already had jobs as of April 1st. So everybody started emailing me, thank you. I know we have a contract, we have to dissolve it. And I was like, what? What is going on, right? And then people were sending me texts. I know they were feeling sorry for me. Like, what are you going to do now? You know? And I said, hey, we do what we got to do. And I have one friend, and I'm going to send her a shout out, Dr. Quesada from San Benito. And one time I was kind of whining to her about, my gosh, right? What am I going to do? And she said, well, aren't you a tech? Like, you're self-taught technology person. Figure it out. And I was like, yes. So then I'm the kind of person that I need to constantly be creating. I have to be creating. And so then I started creating a bunch of free sessions, how to Zoom, basic how to Zoom, because people were embarrassed that they didn't know how to Zoom and they didn't want nobody to know that they didn't know how to Zoom. So I would make it very comfortable, easy environment. No one was going to be there like, ooh, they pressed the wrong button. I started creating free sessions on how to access websites, how to create videos. I mean, I just went off, and people were logging in, right? People were logging in because one thing with technology, and that I haven't shared, is that I am self-taught in technology. I was not a technology person. That's something that I forced myself to jump into because of my bilingual kids. I was just tired of hearing, oh yeah, the bilingual kids, oh yeah. And I'd be like, excuse me, and so technology is a mindset. My friend Norma Castillo from Austin ISD, she's the one that I would go to her trainings, so scared about technology. And I remember her saying, it's not a skill, it's a mindset. And so me trying to empower the community that, guys, okay, yes, we're in COVID-19. Okay, I can teach you how to do the basics. And then once you have the basics, you can take it to that next level. So, one thing now that I really feel we need to focus on is the equity of technology. Because, yes, we're teaching technology, we're using it, but how many of our kids actually have access to it, right?
Oh,
And so,
totally.
yeah, we do have some amazing districts like La Jolla ISD. They have a bus. It's amazing. You need to be on it. They have a bus. You go in the bus, and it's got technology tools all over the place. They go and they park the bus in communities so that kids can have access. Because I might have the iPad, but I don't have Wi-Fi, right?
Right.
So anyway, so to come back to my story, that's how I started. I just started. I said, you know what? I don't need to get paid. I just need to create, and I need to empower. And then after a while, I started having all these free sessions, and then districts started contacting me and saying, hey, well, what you're doing for free, can you do it for us? And I was like, what? Yes, of course I'll do it. And so
Right.
here is Dr. Quesada. She's chiming in, and she's one of the first districts that actually hired me, them and Hidalgo ISD and Westlaco, and said, hey, our teachers. And I remember, I'll never forget, when I was doing the online sessions with San Benito, we had teachers logging in that had already had those certifications, but they just wanted to be online learning. And so they would
Right.
ask, is it okay if I'm in this session, even though I already have the info? And so that's when I knew that people really wanted to learn, right? In a
Right.
safe environment where it's fun. Yeah.
No, and so timely. I mean, I'm so excited. Like you said, somebody said you're the eternal flame. You totally are, right? This is how we persevere. This is very Latino, very like much of the culture, right? Like fall forward. I love all those pieces. Now, my favorite part of the show is what are three things we can do right now? What should we be doing?
Okay, so when I'm thinking about us, number one is we need to be self-aware. Where am I right now in this moment in time of this COVID? Am I hurting? Am I sad? Am I angry? And what can I do to get better? Okay, how are my kids? How are my neighbors? Check on your neighbors. Check on your teacher friends that you haven't talked to in 3 months. Send them a text. Hey, how are you doing? They might respond with, who are you? Because you haven't spoken to them, right? I can guarantee you they're hurting. Number two, learn something new, right? This is a time where we have a good excuse to learn something new, fail, fall on our face. It's okay because everybody's on the same boat. Learn something new, get out of that comfort zone. And then the third thing for me is smile, okay? Because research shows that when we smile, even when we fake smile, and I do this in some of my sessions, like if you put a pencil right here and you do this, for 20 seconds, the brain doesn't know. The brain thinks, oh, she's smiling. She's happy. It's like I had 2,000 bars of chocolate, right? And so we change our perspective and we're like, okay, I'm going to start again. What have I learned from this horrible experience? Because even for us, I believe that every experience that we have, everything that we go through in life, you can turn it into two things. You can turn it into a negative. Hi, Sarai. You can turn it into a negative or you can turn it into a positive. It can make you bitter or it can make you better. So right now, smile, and even it's like, you know what? I'm so mad right now. I have to Zoom. My boss sent me an email. I'm just going to smile for 20 seconds and it's going to change how you feel. So those are my three things. Of course, I'm a big believer in prayer and in keep moving and remember that people, we're all human beings. You know, no matter what color we are, no matter what we look like, if you cut us up, we're gonna bleed the same. The blood's not gonna be a different color. It's gonna be the exact same color. And so at the end of the day, we're human beings. Send a text to somebody you haven't texted in a while, and let's start building communities together.
So timely, so incredible, such a beautiful story. Thank you so much for your service. You served for the U.S.
And as an Army reservist, so that's the one thing I would tell my students in middle school. I've shot an M16, a 45, and a bazooka. Nothing you do is gonna scare me. And so they would be like, and inside I was so scared. But yeah, those are experiences. You see, people don't know that as immigrants, we have done everything. We've cleaned floors, we've mopped. You know, for us right now, my husband has a cleaning business. So now I got certified in COVID-19, right? I don't even, it's like, okay, so we do it all, right? We do it all. And we hope that we can help others who were in our shoes say, you know what, I can do it. I can
Right.
do it and I can do it better. Yeah.
Well, this is helping me, and so excited to have you on the show. Incredible information. I mean, we've got a ton of. I mean, clearly you have a following because everybody's chiming in. They
Oh, hi
love what you
everybody.
say.
I love you all. And woohoo, the RGV is the place to be, let me tell you.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us. Text expert51. You'll get access to her information. She'll be able to give you more information about how to join some of these seminars so you can see us free resources. Dr. AT, we're going to have you back.
Muchas gracias, Gabriel. It was a pleasure to meet you. And thanks to
No,
Pedro who gave you the information. And go
no, a
Austin
usted,
ISD.
sí. Shout out a Pedro de Austin ISD que nos puso en comunicación. It has been incredible having somebody just to kind of be that Latino voice on the other side. Like we had 400 voices talking about the parents, you're talking about the teachers and the students.
Y hablar español, porque we should never be embarrassed about speaking in español.
Exacto. No, be bilingual is it. I would love for you to meet Guero Loco because he's going to be coming on.
Okay.
And if there's a way that we can add more resources to help more teachers, just reach out to us. So,
okay.
Dr. E.T. Trevino, thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Okay, gracias. Well, kick me out because I don't know how to log out.
No worries. I'll log you out right here.
Gracias.
Guys, that was Dr. E.T. She is just incredible power, incredible resource. I'm going to take myself off so you can just see everything she's got. Go ahead and text expert51 to follow her. It has been an incredible journey just listening to her and everything she's been doing. Again, thank you so much for joining us, guys. This week, we're going to have information about how to get to college and some of the next steps that are necessary that the parents are going through and the kids are going through. So join us live on Expert 35, guys. Thank you so much.